So this is disruption, because Uranus represents shocking events, sudden surprises, and breakdown of old systems. So if you don't know, the orange placements are the transit placements. So this is how the placements and the planets are positioned in the sky on a particular day. And this is April 11, 2028. And the blue placements in the inner circle are the natal placements. And this was 4th of July 1776. So that was when America was born. And as you can see, Uranus here is conjunct natal Uranus. And that is when Uranus is back to its original placement that it was when the country was born. And this happens every 84 years. So the first time this happened was during the Civil War, the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861. And the next time, 84 years later, was in 1945 when President Roosevelt died. And it was also at the end of World War II. And just a few months later, after this conjunction, the United States dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. So this is serious energy going on here. And this is the third time that Uranus is going to be conjunct natal Uranus. And as you can see, there's also another planet here, and that's Venus. So Venus is close to transit Venus. And this means that this disruption is going to be related to relationships, because Venus is all about relationships. And this can be partnerships to other countries when speaking of a country. And being so close to the descendant, so that's the line here, this also is referring to partnerships. And when speaking of a country, that's typically partnerships with other countries. So we know that this disruption is going to be about or related to the country's relationships. And being in the 6th house, this is the house of work and health. And in a country's birth chart, this represents the healthcare system. It represents labor, the labor systems, the workforce, daily practices that happens continuously within a country. So this means that that's going to be disrupted, and it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, but Uranus here wants to liberate something. So when we look at the Civil War, for example, the people wanted to be liberated. And that's Uranus. And the daily life got disrupted, but it brought something to it. And having it in Gemini, so this is the sign of communication and the media. So something is going to be going on in the media, or it's going to be communicated in some way, this disruption that's going on. And next up, I also want to look at Chiron. As we can see, there's a lot going on here. And this is the country's wound. Okay, so the country's wound is being triggered. And it's being triggered by Mars, the planet of action, war, drive, and yeah, Chiron is being provoked, and it's going to act because it feels hurt. And because Chiron, the natal placement of Chiron, is in the 4th house, means that this wound is about the country itself, because the 4th house is about the homeland. the history of the country. And it's being provoked by Mars, but it's also being provoked by Mercury. So Mercury is a planet of communication. It can also be about media. And people are speaking up, people are arguing, and there might be something in the media that provokes this wound in the country. And the sun here is very interesting because the sun is about our core identity. And in the case of a country, it can represent the state and how the state wants to get involved in this. And maybe it wants to take control and change the narrative. So there's something going on within the country as well, not just when it comes to other countries. So there's a lot happening on this particular day. But this is not it. We also have these placements going on here. So this is transit Pluto in conjunction to natal south node. But the north node, the transit north node, is also conjunct natal Pluto. And I would say this is about a very deep transformation in regards to power, and something that's been hidden is coming up to the surface, basically. Because Pluto is about the hidden, it's about power, and it wants to be in control. But it's not really happening in the way that it used to anymore, because the south node is where it's what we're meant to leave behind, while the north node is what we're moving towards. So this means that there's going to be a huge shift in regards to power. And because this is happening in the second house, so the second house is about money, possessions, and finances. So this is happening within finances as well, and the country's resources. But as you can see, there's a line here, and that's this line, and it's a trine between transit Pluto and Uranus. So this means that there's something hidden about power is being revealed with Uranus. Uranus is going to disrupt this. And because it's a trine, this means that it's the harmonious aspect. And so this is actually something I like about this chart, because something that's hidden and something very powerful is somehow being exposed in a way that's going to liberate the country. Okay, so that's a good energy that I actually enjoy about this chart, maybe the only thing. But we also have to look at Jupiter here, and transit Jupiter here is conjunct natal Neptune and natal Lilith. And there's an expansive illusion going on here. And the reason I say this is because Neptune is about illusions, but it can also be about spirituality, dissolving boundaries, visions. And this is in the 9th house. And the 9th house is about higher education, philosophy, truth. So Jupiter expands the energy. And this expands that could be illusions about the truth. And this is something I'm not really sure how it's going to affect the people, because the people might actually be in an illusion that the government wants them to be in, or it could be that the government itself is in an illusion. And Lilith here is the rebellion. So this wants to think it wants to have its own mind. It wants to choose for itself. And being in the 9th house, this can talk about unconventional approaches to philosophy. It wants to believe what it wants to believe, basically. So having Jupiter here, expanding this energy even more, this can further strengthen that potential illusion that's going on. And it can drive Lilith to act on this truth, or this truth that people believe in at least. And this is kind of disruptive because Jupiter is also squaring natal Mars. And this means that Jupiter is going to act through Mars. And it can be about risk-taking. I would say typically this is about risk-taking. But in this case, Mars is in the 7th house. And the 7th house is about partnerships. And when speaking of a country, this is partnerships to other countries. It can also be open enemies. So Mars, being the planet of action and war, being in a tense energy to the expansive Jupiter, it's going to exaggerate its actions, and it can create something that it's going out of hand. And with Neptune and Lilith here, this action is based on something that might not even be true. It can be an illusion. It doesn't have to be. It can also be just wanting to act out of this rebellion. But this is the biggest placement, I believe, that something might happen physically. I don't want to say that it needs to happen like violently. Violence can always be prevented, so this is just energies. And Mars doesn't have to act out on this energy, but it can. Now there's also another Neptune and Jupiter energy, and that's the boldest line, red line here. So that is this transit Neptune is squaring natal Jupiter. So transit Neptune here is bringing another type of illusion that is being expanded with Jupiter. So this can be big promises are being made that the government might not be able to accomplish. So because Neptune is the vision, and Jupiter being here in the 7th house, this is about partnerships with, again, other countries. So this can be that Jupiter is in an illusion that they might be in better terms with their alliances than they actually are. That this action with Mars, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just something they did, but now it seems like it's going to provoke these other countries a lot, or partnerships. And I'm not sure how the people will react, but because Chiron is provoked here by the free placements here, I believe the people can see through this Neptune illusion that's going on, and they're not accepting it. So I believe the people are going to know more about this than the state actually knows. And what's even more interesting is that there's an opposition here. So the free placements that are activating Chiron are also in opposition to Saturn. So Saturn here is the hard worker, is the disciplined planet, and it's in the 10th house. So I believe this represents authority, the state. And there's something going on here about the people wanting to act out on this wound, Chiron, but there's tense energy with authority. So there's something that the government might want to do or act upon, but the people, they might not agree with that plan. And we also have a square going on here. So this is transit Saturn squaring natal Pluto. And again, Saturn is the hard worker, the disciplined planet, and a square is a tense energy. And this is a tense energy to power, because Pluto is about power. So the power is being tested and pushed to its limit, because something needs to be transformed, as we spoke about. And Saturn is under heavy pressure here, being in a tense energy with Pluto. So the state, the government is really feeling this. And they might be over their heads with the energy we talked about here, and Neptune being the illusion. So something can happen this day or around this day, as Uranus conjunct Uranus, that's going to be transformative. This is not typical. Like I haven't seen a chart like this before ever. And it means that there's going to be a breakdown of the old. And if you're an intuitive, you might have sensed this energy coming up throughout the past years. And even if you're not intuitive, looking at America and what's going on within the country, there's stuff going on, and it's like building upon the energy that it reaches to a point where it breaks down. It doesn't mean that this breakdown needs to be bad. It can also be liberating, because Uranus wants to liberate. It doesn't just want to disrupt. And I wanted to get this information out when I saw this chart, because I want to prepare people of what might happen, but also try to encourage you to not act violently, to believe in the best possibilities, because that's how we create our lives and a better future for ourselves. And I'm actually going to link a video in the description box to Dr. Joe Dispenza's walking meditation. And that's called Walk for the World. And when you're doing that meditation, I want to ask you to focus on America and how you want to see America unfold, and the beautifully transformed version of the country that you want to see. And that's, I believe, how we could potentially choose the outcome and choose the timeline that we want to be on, or at least give it our best shot, because this energy, like, it's coming whether we want it or not, whether we're ready or not, and it's going to be extremely transformative. It's going to change a lot of the foundations in the country. And another thing I want to mention is that this is the year of the election. So it might be about the election, or at least influence the election a lot. And again, it doesn't have to be a civil war. It doesn't have to be a world war or atomic bombs. That was the history. Now we're going to see how the country has evolved and how this energy can be expressed in hopefully a less violent way than it has been in the past. But looking at this transit chart, this is the most, again, intense transit chart I have ever seen. And I'm not saying that just to say it. I actually didn't know I was going to make this video, but when I saw this and realized what had happened with Uranus in the past, I felt like I had to let you know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and how we could potentially direct the energies in a more favorable way. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next video. Bye!